Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. Here's hoping you're having a great weekend. Welcome, as always, to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Oh, another representative of Windermere Real Estate has joined us this week on the show. Becky Peterson, my good buddy, part of the Diane Beck team. Hi, and welcome back.
Nice to see you again.
Oh, it's always great to see you, too, and I know things are rocking and rolling for you at Windermere. What have been some of the most interesting changes to the Missoula housing market that you've dealt with in 2021 so far, Becky?
You know, I have to say that the number of multiple offers on homes has been mind-boggling. There's, you'll have a multiple offer situation in the past, and maybe you'd get 2 or 3 multiple offers. There have been times this year where, as a buyer, representing a buyer, I'd call and they say, Becky, we got 27 offers.
27?
And you got what? Yeah, we got 27. You didn't get this one. I'm like, wow, 27 offers. I had a few listings and 12, 15 offers. Yeah. So that part has been, it's one thing to know you're competing in a multiple offer, but it's another thing to realize that you are one of a lot. It's just, that was just really different. It was unbelievable. The other thing was sight unseen offers. People, desperately trying to get something, whether they were moving here and they had a date, but they couldn't get out here. So they, are looking and you're out doing viewings with FaceTime or Zoom and showing them everything, but that's still considered sight unseen. Yeah. And it actually came to a new form or a new line in our buy-sell agreements that state this buyer has or has not seen the property in person. Because it does make a difference, and people want to know that. But shocking to see people buy $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes and have never stepped foot in them. I close on one next week where these buyers they've been here obviously, and they have not seen this house outside of the very detailed FaceTime online calls we've done, and they will not see it probably till April, although they'll close on it next week, which that to me is just, I can't imagine. They're very interesting. And then the number of cash, the amount of cash buyers that came out with the surplus money was, I just didn't, you're just kind of surprised by it now and then. Yeah. So that's kind of been, in addition to what everyone hears, but those have been some of the ones that really stick out in my mind and go, how often in a career, I know Diane I'll talk, she's never in her career, in the 30-some years of real estate. I don't think we've ever seen this in real estate like this for this long.
Those are great examples. Multiple has taken on a new definition in the world of real estate. But, and in years past, things may have slowed down approaching winter months. Is there really such a thing as a softer season anymore?
It is in the sense that, rather than having maybe 10 buyers that are in town right now and can be looking, maybe that has, the amount of activity has slowed down a little bit. But the market is still as hot as it was, we just don't have enough listings. So all these people are kind of pent up. And so you're looking for them. And then when something comes on, you jump and you go, and when something does hit the market for them. So yes, in a sense that we're just not as busy in the sense of as many activities going, but I don't see a dip in the market, say price wise or anything like that.
Got it. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate and our guest Becky Peterson with Windermere Real Estate, part of the Diane Beck team. So what is your take on potential sellers right now, Beck? At least the ones that don't necessarily have to sell immediately. Is it why not wait because demand is just going to keep increasing, or are you seeing a little more, well, this can't last forever, let's do it?
Actually, what I see is I want to sell, but I don't know where I'm going to go, and I'm scared.
Sure. Well, yeah, there is that.
There's a lot of that where they think, gosh, I'd love to capitalize on this right now, but then I have to replace it.
Yeah.
And so in order to replace it and not have to pay the same or more, then you're having to sacrifice something in your next home, possibly, or you've gained so much equity, though, that it allows you the opportunity maybe for a move up because you have the equity for the down payment and maybe your financials have changed so you can afford a little bit more. Those things combined might allow you to, do a move up. But they are, anyone right now that says they want to list, we've talked and said there's really no reason to wait because there's such a pent up demand that, you're going to get, if you price it correctly. And I have to say that I don't know how to bold that, but the idea of, there's so many out there. I know you're saying this is what it's worth, but let's price it here and see.
Well, that's almost a topic itself, isn't it? Because of the huge demand, I don't know if sellers, they don't have a low ceiling on that price tag. Let's put it that way.
Well, they don't want to, but if they don't heed the advice of their agent that's saying, no, this is where the market, here's where our comparative market analysis, when we're comparing other properties that have sold recently, this is the price point. If you say, yeah, but that means I should be able to shoot above, buyers they're educated and their agents are educated and they're going to say, yeah, that's not, and then you won't get multiple offers. In fact, you'll wait 2 weeks. And in the past 2 weeks, no big deal. Today, why has that house been on the market 14 days? What's wrong with it? Nothing's wrong with it, but
14 days.
Yeah, but it's overpriced possibly. They're pushing the envelope. Whereas you'll see a property and go, oh my gosh, they priced this and it's right in where the same or 5,000 less than one sold just like it down here. That house will get 5 to 10 offers or 5 offers. I will say with the fall, maybe we're not seeing 27 offers. We're seeing 4 to 5, but sometimes you might only get 1 or 2. I mean, that part of it maybe is slowing, but that's just activity of the year, but you're still getting, they're going very well. So I think that anyone that's waiting because they think the market's going to continue to increase, it will, at the same percentage that it did in 21. I don't think we're going to see the same trajectory, but it'll be close. It's because we just don't have the inventory for the amount of buyers that are in the market and coming into the market, population-wise, age-wise, all of that. So it really is, if you want to sell, then go for it. But if you're waiting for something fantastic, the other thing we expect in the next, probably 60 days is due to the forbearance being pulled back. They anticipate some foreclosures, not to the level that I think everyone thought. But the difference is that'll just give us a little bit more inventory. You're not going to be going to the steps and getting any bargains on any of that because they've gained all that equity, so they're not upside down. They're not in a position where they can't get out of it. If they just kind of decide to sell, they're probably going to get out of it and then still have something to go to, do something different. So that may give us, all I see in that is a little bit more inventory. Yeah. But even in our area, I don't anticipate it to be anything very noticeable, only because I think it was like the beginning of third quarter or middle of third quarter, I had listened to a financial analysis, and they were saying that in our region and in Montana, the people that were even utilizing it was such a low percentage in comparison to other areas in the country.
Well, let's move on to the other side of this deal. Is it still hard to educate and condition prospective buyers to the realization that a new home is going to cost a lot more than they might have, anticipated to begin with?
Yes, in some cases, and no in others. What's been really hard is people that have maybe had been planning to buy and you have that initial consultation and you're saying, okay, well, here's the things we need to do and what you need to work on. Go talk to this lender, figure out your finances, everything else. And then we'll put together your dream list that's affordable. And then you get a year down the road, and what was then is so not there now. In fact, I had a great couple that had been looking. We were looking at, we had a townhome that we were under contract on, and then they just kind of got cold feet, which I totally understand. So we pulled back and they waited. Well, now what that was versus what they can get now, night and day. It's, in fact, now we're looking 40 minutes out of town because they can't go into that. And so that part is humbling and can be difficult, but at the same sense, they're far more educated than ever before because it's such a hot topic. And then the hardest part is the managing that emotional roller coaster every time you write an offer to whether or not you're going to get it, and then the letdown or the disappointment, because it's, you imagine it. The minute you write that buy sell, it's like buying a lottery ticket. Lay in bed and they think of everything they're going to do, what colors they're going to paint, where the furniture is going to go, that first barbecue, those family memories. And then that rug's yanked out from underneath you, and you got to go start again and then again. And sometimes, for some people, it's a couple times. Other people, I think 12, 15 times. Oh. It's exhausting for them, and you just really feel. So that's the biggest thing that we manage is that the emotional roller coaster. After that, the time frames, everything else seems to be the same. It's just that how many offers am I going to have to write? And you just feel so bad and say, hopefully one. But.
Right. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. And our guest, my good buddy Becky Peterson, part of the Diane Beck team at Windermere. And, managing buyers and sellers' expectations on the length of time a transaction takes now, Becky. Anything recently changed in that process, or is that pretty much held steady for a while?
It's the actual process once you're under contract, it had lengthened maybe by 2 weeks. So it used to be we could do, if you really wanted to push it, you could maybe close on a conventional loan in 30 days. But the average was always you wanted 45. Right. But now the appraisal process, because the appraisers were so busy, and at one point, our inspectors were so busy that we were going, for the most part, 60 days was average. And if it was going to be a VA, you might, or an FHA, you might need a little bit longer. So it's always calling the lender and saying, what can you do? What are you seeing? What are the time frames on the latest appraisals? Because it might be 60 days. So the norm has been 60. I think right now we're kind of back to 45 just because of the time of the year. But that is one thing that I think changed this year just due to the availability of people to do that process. But other than that, it's been, it was all pretty much the same. Well,
and even 15 days or so, maybe 15 days or more somewhere in there it's not a crazy change in the time frame.
2 weeks really isn't. The biggest thing too has been, in educating both buyers and sellers. So for buyers, it's more the process of actually getting under contract. Yeah. That could take months if we can't find the right house. Sellers, where it used to be, hey, you might get it under contract and you'd plan, so let's, make a goal of having it under contract within 30 days. Now it's like, okay, it's probably going to be under contract within 24 hours to a week. I mean, like I said, it's a little bit different now, but let's say a week. And then where are you going? Where are we going to put you?
Your place. Stay with you for a while.
And some of that is trying to find them something, ahead of time. And that just creates a whole nother conundrum of, they go to buy, but it's contingent on them selling this one. That's, in this market, has been a very difficult thing to have.
Yeah. Well, review for us, if you will, the advantages you can offer as a local agent as far as, let's say accessing prices in in the multiple listing services, which just seems to keep growing and growing, you know.
Yeah, the multiple listing service, because we have contract and we allow our listings to sweep out to so many national websites, realtor.com, Zillow, homes.com, all of those. Anyone can really look at the price. And that's fine. But what the question on that is what's going on behind it? What aren't you seeing? What can't you see? And that's where I think a local agent has so much more to tell you, because I'll have people send me something off of those. I'll say, hey, Becky, what do you think of this one? I'm like, well, actually, that one's already under contract. Or actually, here's what I can see by going in and looking at the documents and looking at what's going on with this property. You told me you wanted this, Mr. Customer, but actually in this property, it has these things that don't match that. Is that okay with you? Let's dig into it deeper. The other thing that I think is really important is, it's always fun to get on the internet and do all kinds of research for everything. I can be a doctor. I can be an attorney. We can all be kinds of things. But the truth in it is, where's it coming from? What do you really know about it? And what are the details behind it? And I think that having a agent and a local agent, and by that I mean, I was born and raised here. So I have people ask me all the time, well, I want to live out in, the Florence area. Okay, well, you have these schools. And when you're out there, you can have this kind of, you might get something closer in town, which when you say town in Florence isn't a lot of town per se. And being able to explain, depending on who they are coming in, they're retired, they don't have kids. Do they have kids? Are they going to have kids? What's your life going to look like? How often are you going to be on the road? Are you going to work in Missoula? Are you going to work in Hamilton? Are you working from home? What kind of internet service do you need? Because we also know those things. I have a client that located here from Seattle but does consulting all over the world and was touting off these download and upload speeds that were making my eyes gloss over. Internet's internet, right? We don't, it might be dial-up at that house, believe it or not. But in that, I learned a lot because we did a lot of research to make sure that the house they were in was going to allow him to do that. And fortunately, that house was in the beta testing for Starlink, and he has Starlink. So, but then the kids, one was going to be in school, one's going to go to the University of Montana, and then they ski, and how far are the distances here, and what do you know? It's that kind of information that I think, personally, is what I hear back from my clients all the time is it's so nice that you know about that or about the chamber or what's the history, on downtown, or even it gets as silly as why is there an L and an M? I mean, there's all kinds of things like that.
Why do you, I'm not asking you to diss anybody here, but why do you think there are so many inaccuracies on listings like that? Just because of lack of market knowledge? They don't get freshened or updated in the process? Well, because once you find one and you find a few of those disparities in one, at least this is how mine works is, okay, well, if I can find that many in just one, that tells me that if I took the time, I would find those in just about everyone. I mean, that's kind of how my head works.
So the actual MLS listing that comes out of our Northwest MLS, so we're governed by rules, and those rules require that our information goes in accurately. We can get fined if it isn't accurate. So the beginning information is usually very accurate coming from any of our agents that are members of that. What happens is when it sweeps, some of them are really good, like realtor.com, it'll sweep and we can actually go in and get on the backside and correct anything that may be swept incorrectly because it's all code, how those sweep.
All right.
But we can't correct Zillow. And what happens is the reason isn't necessarily that Zillow's, some of their software doesn't read the same thing as it sweeps. But the other thing that happens is when we put something under contract, we usually will say under contract taking backup offers. Mm-hmm. Well, in Zillow's software, that just means it's still available. So somebody will see something that's there and then they'll call and say, well, that's under contract. Well, it doesn't say that. Well, that's because you're looking on Zillow, not on, and I think realtor.com, I can't remember, might kind of do the same thing, but it all has to do with how their codes read. So I always tell my clients, first of all, if they don't want to do it through our platform on Windermere or our Beck team, that's fine because, some of those are some great formats, but to send it to me and then I'll vet it for them real quick and let them know.
All right. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest this week, Becky Peterson with Windermere Real Estate, part of that fantastic Diane Beck team. Also, thank you to some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring you Missoula Real Estate Today every weekend on News Talk KGBO, including Miles Link of Opportunity Bank of Montana, Rob Fleming at Man Mortgage, and Carol Blodgett with MakeItMissoula.com. And back to Becky Peterson with Windermere. I probably should have asked you this like 15 or 20 minutes ago because you brought it up. But what about home equity? Is that still a bright spot for folks?
Oh, very much so. In fact, if you listen to any of the economists, they'll say that America's homeowners' wealth has increased because of their home equity. If you bought, I have an interesting story. I have a client that bought I think we closed in November of 2019. And they bought this home. They were from out of state, bought this home in a beautiful area. And after being here, when they finally were able to get here through the pandemic, they decided that they wanted just a little bit more rural setting than this, just not quite the subdivision feel. So we decided to sell that house 14 months after they had bought it. The equity they gained in that short amount of time allowed them to take a step up in location and a few other things. And then rates had actually came down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they gained money in that. So yes, if you're looking, let's say you've been in your home 2 years, because usually you want to be there, have to have lived there 2 of the last 5 years to look. But I always, I usually send out a letter to all my clients every year saying, I'm happy to do a home valuation for you so that you have it in your financial portfolio of what your home is now worth. So on your financials, what your net worth is and what you have, you can add that to it and take it to your financial planners. Because yes, it has been a growth. If you think about it, in some areas, we've had upwards of a 30% increase in home values. So take that to your home, add that, and then think of the equity because that's all pure base for you.
Yeah.
So it's a very bright spot. And with the prices on rents right now versus where interest rates are, if you're in a rental, and I mean, there's programs out there to help people with the down payments. If we can, but the price of what people are paying in rent versus what they might be able to get a small house for. Granted, we don't have a ton of that inventory, but it could, it's more so than ever a reason to consider going through the class, learning about it, talking to a mortgage lender to find out which way might you be better. Because think about it. If you're paying that rent and if you'd bought a year ago, where would you be? Well, if you buy today, where are you going to be?
Yeah. You always bring such good examples. That's a great example there you brought up of a win-win, isn't it? Because here's a couple that this house wasn't quite the right fit. It wasn't a great fit for us because of the subdivision or whatever. But we've got enough equity in the house already. We can upgrade. We can buy someplace there. We want to, we can afford to upgrade to a place we really want to be. In turn, that makes a house available for somebody who probably thought, man, this is the dream home right here. Win-win.
It was, and that's one there that in 24 hours, because it was just a beautifully well-kept, very pride and ownership turnkey. There was nothing, but the point of that is just how the equity changes. Sure. And it doesn't always happen that way, normally, but I do that all the time. I'm always going in and looking at my own house because, your own house in everyone's mind is always worth so much more than you think it is. My husband's off. Hey, don't you think, I just saw that. Boy, our house. I'm like, honey, you say our house is better than that house, but let me pick it apart for you. here's what we'd have to do. And that's the other thing in counseling people is, okay, you want to sell your house today, but in a perfect world, if you didn't move and you could do anything that you think you would love to have done in this house, what would it be? And we make that list, and I say, that's what every buyer is going to think your house needs. Now let's price it accordingly.
Yeah, okay. Okay, hey, before we run out of time, I got to get you to take a look into the 2022 crystal ball, Becky. Though, by the way, Becky Peterson with Windermere Real Estate, our guest this week on Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk KGVO, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere. Anything in the crystal ball might suggest there are going to be trends one way or the other, higher, lower prices, more or less supply, demand situations, mortgage rate projections. What do you think?
I think our market here is going to continue on the increase, meaning prices are going to increase, maybe not to the percentage increase as we saw last year, quarter over quarter. But I do foresee them continuing to increase, probably in the 10%, 12% range. The thing about that is interest rates are projected to go up. So now you add those two together and your buying power decreases if you're thinking of that. So, but if we don't have the inventory, you can only buy so quickly. But if you're thinking about it, it's best to be looking because they project that rates just went up just a tiny bit, like 3.13 is where they were at, somewhere with, that all comes down to what's your, your FICO score or whatever, but your credit ratings. But then they say it'll tick up again to right around an average of 3.3 is the guess for first quarter of 22. By second quarter, 3.43, and then 3.58. Now, in the world of interest rates, that is still historically low.
Yeah.
We've never seen rates like this. So when people are like, oh my gosh, I'm like, yeah, well, my first house was like at 9%, which was considered really low at that time 30 years ago.
It makes you wonder what the shock number would be. 5, 6, who knows?
Yeah, and those were record lows. But when you're looking at, I will say, because I have, again, ran the numbers and looked at different things, and I always use my own house as something that I always compare to because I know everything about it. And I look at if I did this and did that, this rate does this. And boy, you start changing those percentage rates just a little bit like that. It changes your monthly payment. And quite honestly, and I tell this to all kinds, unless you're paying cash, you're not really buying the price of the house. You're buying what is your monthly payment going to be based on your budgets, based on what you can do, per your lender, what they're telling you can do, maybe your financial advisor and what they're saying you should spend. What can you do? You're really trying to just get into it for the first time. So you're kind of going to live to your house and not have a life for a year, whatever the case may be, which I don't always recommend. But it changes it. And you're really looking at that monthly payment even more than you're looking at the price of the house. But as the price of the house goes up and the interest rates go up, your power is going to go down. And so that's one prediction I definitely foresee. I think our inventory is still going to be extremely tight. Sure. We just, it's not like we have 500 houses being put in at once and they're building a block out at a time. That's not happening. We do have lots of people that due to the change in working where they can work remotely. And when that first came up, I was like, oh yeah, whatever. No, it is true. We can work remote and we're getting out of this area or that area. And they're coming from, for me at least, the people I've dealt with, Seattle, Portland, areas of California, places where it's gotten a little bit crazier. They've been locked in, but now that they know they can work remotely, they want a half-acre yard or a 1-acre yard or 3 to 5 acres. Or some of them even more than that. But the point is they can now live in a place as beautiful and as fortunate as what we've always known here, that it's the quality of life here that is so wonderful. And they want that now. They're ready for that change.
Buying or selling, you need a local realtor, folks. And this is a great one right here. Becky Peterson with Windermere Real Estate, this week's guest on Missoula Real Estate Today. Great seeing you again. I'm sure glad you could stop by.
Oh, it was always wonderful to see you. And I really appreciate the time.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. For a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit move2missoula.com. That's move2, Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.